You don't flinch when they shout. You flinch when you think about telling your truth. Because it's not always about loud voices or slamming doors. Sometimes the fear is quieter but deeper. It's the fear of being misunderstood, dismissed, blamed, or punished just for being honest. So you do the thing you've learnt to do best. You shrink. You edit your feelings. You keep the peace by being silent. So let's look at why you're afraid to speak. Let's break it down. You're not afraid of speaking. You're afraid of what happens after. The sulking, the overreaction, the twisting of your words, the feeling that somehow everything becomes your fault, or that sick tension in the air that lasts for hours or days after you speak up. So now, before you even say a word, your body runs through a checklist. Will they take this the wrong way? Will they turn it back on me? Will I regret saying anything at all? That's not communication. That's an emotional landmine detection. And the more you do it, the more exhausted you become. Because silence isn't safety, it's self-abandonment. But here's what no one tells you. Fear in relationships doesn't always look like terror. It often looks like hyper-awareness. You start measuring the mood in the room before you speak. You sugarcoat your feelings. You drop little hints instead of saying what you need. You start every sentence with, "I don't want to upset you, but..." That's not love. Survival. You've been trained into silence. This didn't start yesterday. You've probably spoken up before and paid the price. And then maybe they withdrew emotionally, got defensive, flipped it around, made you feel dramatic, needy, or too much. Then they played the victim, so you ended up comforting them for your pain. So now your nervous system knows the drill. Keep it light, don't go too deep, avoid the hard stuff. You've been trained to believe that their comfort matters more than your truth. But the truth? Your voice didn't disappear. It was pushed into hiding. You didn't stop speaking because you had nothing to say. You stopped because it stopped feeling safe to say it. And here's where it gets deeper. This dynamic might feel familiar because you've been here before. Maybe in your childhood. Maybe in a past relationship. Somewhere along the way you learnt, when I express how I feel, I lose connection. And that lesson stuck. So now you default to silence to stay attached, even if it means losing yourself. So let's look at red flags that you're afraid to be honest about. You mentally rehearse every conversation in advance. You downplay your emotions to avoid setting them off. You only share your real feelings with friends, not your partner. And you've stopped asking for things because it always leads to tension. Then you feel guilty for wanting more, needing more, being more. If you're nodding along, you're not overthinking. You're under-speaking. So, what can you do? Let's talk power. Not shouting, not fighting. Real power. The kind that comes from reclaiming your voice. Name the fear. Start with the truth and say, I'm afraid to speak up in this relationship. Naming it is one step. Shame dies with clarity. Now, watch how they react. Not what they say. Do they welcome honesty or defend themselves immediately? Do they listen or do they punish you with silence and sulking? Their reaction is your answer. Stop asking for permission to feel. You don't need their approval to have emotions. In fact, you're allowed to be upset. You're allowed to say no. If your partner requires you to be silent so they can feel secure, that's not love, that's control. Use small truths to rebuild your voice. You don't need a showdown. You just need to start speaking and say, that didn't sit right with me. I'm not okay with how that felt. I need to talk about something that's hard for me. And even if they push back, you're pushing forward. You're choosing honesty over harmony. And that's how you get your power back. And the final truth. If your truth has to be silenced to keep someone, you've already lost yourself. Real love won't punish you for being honest. It won't twist your words. It won't make you afraid to speak. You deserve connection that doesn't cost you your voice, because love without safety isn't love, it's a performance. And you weren't born to play a part in someone else's emotional theatre. You were born to be real, heard, and free.